I'm so excited to be playing with the new NATASHA DENONA Yucca palette. Yes. I'm going to be giving you some information, some swatches, some close-ups. I'm going to be doing 2 looks with the palette, and at the end, I'm going to do some comparisons because, as we all know, this has been compared to quite a lot of palettes. So I want to kind of do my own investigation. I have not watched anybody's review, anybody's demo with this palette yet because I wanted my own opinions. So I always put timestamps down below in the description box if you want to skip around, if you're not interested in one thing or another. Check the description box. I will link the palette down below. And give this a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and consider subscribing if you love makeup content, especially eyeshadows. It is something we play with a lot over here. And if you are new, my name is Rachel. Welcome. So the NATASHA DENONA Yucca palette is one of her midi-size palettes. It does retail for $69. I did purchase mine online at Sephora on the day of launch, which was June 1st. I just received it yesterday, which was June 4th. So it took 3 days to get to me, which is great. I know so many people have already uploaded their videos on this palette, so I am a little late to the game, but I was away this weekend anyway. Even if I had picked it up in store, I couldn't have done it. So this is the little blurb they put on the Sephora app. A set of 15 new fiery shades and an exquisite palette that synergistically merges NATASHA's 3 daring formulas of sparkling, foiled, matte, and metallic. Becoming immersed in the tropical paradise surrounding her, NATASHA has created a new trend of eyeshadow with statement-making, hand-designed original shades and formulas. From the revolutionary sparkling foiled, first introduced in the Love Face palette, to the creamy textured mattes and the ultra-shiny metallics, these buttery smooth shades provide maximum color payoff, blending seamlessly to produce vibrant, ultra-pigmented, long-lasting looks. That's really exciting. I didn't know that there was that special formula in here. Okay, that's great. So apparently, and you guys probably know this more than I do, like I said, I haven't watched anyone's videos, but these 4 like sparkly shade are the new sparkling foiled formula. So that's really exciting. Ray is a traditional metallic and all the rest are mattes, which does also surprise me because when I opened this palette, Fushi and Calafia, probably pronouncing those wrong. They look like a cream to powder, like how they look in the pan, but apparently they're just regular mattes, which I don't really like the cream to powder formula, so I'm totally okay with that. I will say my first impression upon opening this and looking at it in person is I feel like this is very mid-tone, as opposed to some of the other palettes that I've seen like this that have a lot more contrast. This one is very mid-tone in terms of the mattes. So like I said, we'll do comparisons at the end, but I'm very excited to play with this, so let's do it. Please let me know down in the comments if you picked this palette up. I would really love to know. I know a lot of you were waiting for reviews to decide between this or the Nomad palette, so I would really love to know what you decided. I picked up a brand new set of Singe beauty brushes, so I will be using those today. I'll pop in a few other brushes as well, I'm sure. So I'm gonna take the Singe EO3. I'll link the Singe brush set down below as well. I've been really enjoying them. Obviously, I bought a second set. I'm gonna go into the shade Citrine, which is like this mustard yellow. Very pretty. By the way, I have not swatched these at all. I have no idea what to expect. I've already primed my eyes with the Urban Decay Primer Potion. I'm just gonna take Citrine and put it through the crease. A lot of kick up in the pan. Wow. Wow, that is a beautiful, very pigmented shade. Very pigmented. That is extremely impressive. Very pigmented, but not hard to use. It blended out very easily. Wow, I didn't expect that. All right. I'm next gonna go in with the shade Valley, right next to the shade I just used. And I'm gonna place this a little lower in the crease as well as on my outer corner. A lot of kick up in the pan once again. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
So in my opinion, that showed up on my eye way darker than it does in the palette. which I don't mind because like I said, I kind of felt like this was a very mid-tone palette, which I prefer things that have contrast. So I like that I can make this build more. That is extremely beautiful. Beautiful. I also meant to talk about the packaging in the beginning. I didn't. I love the kind of like ombre slash tie-dye type of look to the palette. I love the colors. And it's like a kind of matte cover. Very, very beautiful. And it does match the inside, which I always love. And the color story is right up my alley. I love neutrals with a twist. That is my favorite type of palette. Like, you better expect one day when I collab with a brand that I will be doing a neutrals with a twist palette. I was all about this when I saw it. I'm gonna go in with the shade Flax down here, this kind of cool tone brown. And I'm gonna place this just right on my outer corner. I'm gonna take a Singe E04 brush to do that. Just to deepen it up, yeah, wow. I did get a little fallout with that shade. It doesn't bother me because obviously I do my eyes first, but just wanted to let you know. I'm gonna pop on the NYX glitter primer all over the lid. I'm gonna go into the shade Komorembi, one of the sparkling new formulas. Ooh, that looks very beautiful. And I'm just gonna place this all over the lid. Ooh, that's pretty. Ooh, wow, is that beautiful. It feels ultra creamy when I am putting my finger in the pan. It doesn't feel chunky or dry, but look at that. Wow. I love that she's putting this formula in here because with some of her midi palettes in the past, like the Glam palette, the metallics haven't been my ultimate favorite. So I love that she's putting these more impactful shimmers. Okay, I just popped off camera and I put on foundation, concealer, and powder. Everything else I have on my face throughout this whole video in both looks, I will link down in the description box, but let's finish up the lower lash line together. I'm gonna take that shade Valley, the second matte shade that we used, and a Singe E05, and I'm just gonna run that along my lower lash line. I'm gonna take this brush from Alamar, an even fluffier small brush. I'm gonna go into Citrine, that first matte shade we used, and just blend underneath. I'm gonna go in with the back of these Anastasia brushes that come in their palettes. I'm gonna go into Flax, that deepest matte shade, and just push this up against my lower lash line. I actually wanna take the metallic shade Ray and place this on my lower lash line, just more towards the inside. I'm gonna pick it up on this kind of funky Alamar brush, and I'm gonna spray the brush. Oh yeah, that's really pretty. That's much more of like a yellow gold color. That is beautiful. And in the waterline, I'm just going to put a cream. This is Flower Beauty Forever Wear Eyeliner Crayon in the shade Moonstone. All right, so I am back. I went off camera, just finished up the last finishing touches, and this is look number 1. What do you think? I'm obsessed.
No, I don't think you understand. I'm obsessed.
Everything so far that I've used has been really wonderful. The mattes, as you probably heard me rave about as I was putting the makeup on, the mattes are very pigmented, but blendable. Extremely easy to work with. They give definitely some impact. Some of them even came up a little bit darker than I expected, which I like. I like that. And then the 2 metallics that I used were stunning. This one that I used on my lid, that sparkly new formula, as you can see, is beautiful. It gives that real va-va-voom without being chunky, without giving a ton of fallout, without being a glitter, but really impactful. And then that more standard metallic Ray, really beautiful on my lower lash line, still gives impact. Maybe not as sparkly, but still really beautiful. I went off camera and put an inner corner highlight in from another palette just because in this palette today, I didn't really find anything I really wanted for an inner corner highlight. I do plan to use this like pastel yellow for an inner corner highlight in my next look. So far, the experience has been wonderful. I love how this came out. I'm so excited to continue playing with this. And so, yeah, I'm gonna send you off to look number 2. Okay, we are on to look number 2 with the palette. I'm super excited. I definitely want to incorporate some more like green leaning tones today. That's what I'm thinking. First, gonna go in with the shade Tipu. Tipu? This one over here. I've already primed my eyes with the Urban Decay Primer Potion, and I'm just gonna run this through the crease. I'm gonna go into the shade Willow over here, which honestly, this is usually not my favorite tone of color to use, like a bluish green, but I wanna test it out. So I'm just gonna place that lower in the crease as well as the outer corner. Even though that is not my favorite color to wear, I will say that was very, very easy to work with. Something else I'm not a big fan of is the cream to powder formula. And like I said earlier, these two are definitely cream to powders. Like they feel straight up like a cream, like her cream to powders do. I'm not really sure why she didn't call them cream to powders. Again, I've not watched anyone else's video on this, so I'm not sure if anybody else is catching this either. But like I looked on her website, I looked on Sephora, and they're calling all the rest of these mattes. Not really sure what's going on there. But all that to say, I am gonna use Calathea, this cream to powder, in my outer corner. It's not my favorite formula, but I figured I would try and test it out. And the reason why it's not my favorite formula is these tend to crease on me really bad, and I don't really have a problem with creasing shadows, but the cream to powders crease on me horribly. By the way, I do have a NATASHA DENONA palette ranking video that I did a few months ago. I can link that down below if you want like my bottom picks and top picks of the brand. So far, all 3 of those worked great. I'm gonna pop on the NYX glitter primer all over the lid. I'm gonna go into the shade Maquia, and I'm gonna put that all over the lid. Beautiful. All right, let's work on the lower lash line together. I'm going to use the shade Flax and just push that up against my lower lash line. I'm gonna go in with the shade Acacia, and I'm just going to smudge that out. I'm gonna go into the shade Tipu and just smudge that out. All right, I did mention last look that I wanted to use this shade up here as my inner corner highlight, Camu. And I'm gonna try it. If I need to go in with a matte white on top of it to brighten it up, I will. But let's just try it on its own to see what it looks like. It's really pretty. I think I can get away with it on its own. What do you think? I'm gonna go in with the ColourPop Cream Gel Liner in the shade Sunnyvale in the waterline. All right, and this is finished look number 2. What do you think? Listen, I love greens, so I think this came out super pretty. I really love it. So let me kind of give you my first and second impression thoughts on the palette. This is not a review. I have to continue using the palette before I give you my final thoughts. I will put it in a palette ranking in the future, usually every 6 weeks or so. I do a palette ranking where I give you kind of speed reviews and a ranking style of the palettes that I've been testing. But I will tell you right off the bat, I think the quality of this is very good. Like these mattes are very, very pigmented, but also very blendable. I think they're more pigmented than the usual NATASHA DENONA Midi palette quality, in my opinion, in my experience. I'm not crazy about the fact that there are 2 cream to powders in here, but the one that I did use on my outer corner so far looks nice. Of course, I will kind of see how it holds up over the rest of the day. I have to wear this all day, all night. And the shimmers in this are extremely impactful, much more so than her usual Midi palette formula. So I think if you like really impactful, sparkly shimmers, you're really gonna enjoy this. It kind of just depends on what you're looking for, but I love it. I love a sparkly shimmer. I like the formula of these. They're not like dry or crumbly. They are quite creamy. They look really pretty on the lid, so I do not hate this at all. And in the beginning, I said that this was mid-tone. I think that these deeper shades do tend to show up deeper on the lid than they look in the pan. So that's really nice that you can deepen it up if you want to. And there's plenty of mid-tone shades if you want to mix up like the tone of the look you're going for. So, I mean, I'm really impressed with this formula. Now, I want to compare this to a couple of other palettes that have come out recently that I know people have been talking about. So, of course, the new Nomad Okavango Safari palette is one that it is compared to quite a lot. But I will tell you, looking at them in person and after using them, I don't think that they're the same palette. Are they similar? Certainly. Do you need both? I don't know. That's up to you. I mean, I need both. I did get this Nomad one in PR, just so you know. I'm going to try my best to hold these up. There we go. Okay. So let me turn the light down just a little bit so you can get better color.
A few moments later.
So I will say, I personally think that the Natasha Denona one has a lot more like oranges, yellows, that type of leaning tones. And the Nomad one has a lot more like brown tones. And I think the Nomad one has more cool tones. This one doesn't really have many cool tones in it at all. It's very warm, it's very yellow. One thing I will say also is there's only 2 green mattes. Well, there's a cream to powder. That's a deep dark green. But this green matte is very bluish green, like it has a blue undertone, and the green mattes in the Nomad palette are definitely more like yellow leaning greens, warmer greens, stuff like that, which I prefer that type of green for sure in a matte. Like I said, there's some yellows in here. There's really no yellows. These 2 shades are very, very similar. These 2 shades are pretty similar, although I think the one in Natasha Denona is deeper. And then the shimmers in the Natasha Denona one, just based on this couple times that I've used it, are much sparklier, much more impactful than the Nomad ones. The Nomad ones are very pretty, don't get me wrong, I really like them, but they're not as sparkly, not as shiny, not as opaque as the Natasha Denona. So it just depends on what formula you're going for, but overall, Natasha Denona, much more yellow, much more orange with a cool toned green. Nomad has a lot more like browns, cool tone browns, warm tone browns, and then the green row is very warm leaning or true green leaning. And then the shimmer formula is different. I also think the Natasha Denona matte formula in this case is more pigmented than the matte formula in the Nomad, although the Nomad one is really good too. It's just not as pigmented in my opinion. And then I wanted to also compare the Stone and Rock palette from Odin's Eye that came out recently. Again, it has that green, brown, neutrals with a twist. I actually think the Odin's Eye and the Nomad one are pretty darn similar. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Okay. I think the Nomad and the Odin's Eye are actually closer in color than these 2. Yeah, see, looking at these, very different in my opinion. Again, Natasha Denona is very yellowy leaning. The Odin's Eye has kind of that same cooler tone brown, more warm greens, although there is the shade Cheer up here, which is kind of the same color as this cream to powder where it's like a forest green. You have a matte white in the Odin's Eye. You have a multi-chrome in the Odin's Eye. I think that kind of the same thing I said about the Nomad palette is how I feel about in terms of color story. So I hope that helps. I do feel like this Natasha Denona one is pretty unique. I don't feel like this really is a dupe for either of the palettes I showed you. Are they close? Definitely. Are they giving you similar vibes? Yes. I mean, can you get similar looks? Probably. They're not the same though. So I think if you wanted both, I don't think it would be redundant, but I also feel like you probably only need, well, you don't need either of them. You don't need any of them, but I hope that helps you if you were curious about it. All right, that's all I have to say. I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know. Did you pick up this Natasha Denona palette? Are you thinking on it? What are your thoughts on the palette? What are your thoughts on my looks? I like both the looks. I can't really decide. I think they're both really pretty. So That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot when you do that. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing before you leave. I do upload videos weekly, and I would love to see you back on my channel again. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.